Today we've got gameplay from Venosa, a top 500 Genji/Tracer player. In the highest ranks in Asia, you often run into Overwatch League players pretty frequently during the off seasons like now, and Venosa has stated that he felt outclassed during this game. So in this video we'll be analyzing why and explaining how you can win games even against stronger opponents. First, let's look at the roster and compositions of the two teams. On our team, we have Hoan and Irony from NYXL and Hangzhou Spark respectively. On the enemy team, we have Pelican, Lastro, Becky, as well as Vindame. Both teams are playing Orisa and Sojourn, but the differences come in between the support line and flex CPS. Our team is utilizing Zen, Bap, and Genji. The key to this team comp is for Zen to both support the DPS taking the off angle while poking down the enemy team. On the other side, as Ana, Kiriko, Tracer, the key will be for Tracer and Kiriko to play as a detached unit to flank and pressure the backline. Let's start from Venosa's POV. He starts forward in order to poke and farm ult charge early, which is common in Eichenwalde, but while doing so, Lastro pops out from the house and lands a surprise anti, forcing our Genji to dash back to cover and regroup. Meanwhile, just like we've predicted, the enemy Tracer and Kiriko split off into the backline with a triple blink, along with Kiriko TP and Suzu to assassinate the Zenyatta. We came to peel as soon as the anti wore off, but the defensive hold crumbles as the front line pulls back and gives up space, causing a lost fight. Let's dive deeper to the root of the problem. The overall defensive positioning was heavily flawed. All 5 players are using only a single sightline. When the entire team clumps up together like this, it's very easy for the enemy team to deal with because there's only one direction they need to worry about. This opens up room which allows the enemies to break choke by moving to the alley, completely ignoring main and gaining virtually uncontested access to the point. Ideally, the Orisa would utilize the right side room to cut off rotations to the alley, while Bap takes a corner position around tower to be able to heal both Orisa to the right and Zenyatta firing main. The Genji needs to take the front line on the left staircase to prevent enemies from rushing at the backline squishies for free, essentially being a filter for the enemy team. This way, we can surround the enemies and create a crossfire around the choke, allowing Genji to contest the Tracer from easily diving Zenyatta. Even if Zenyatta does get dove, because we're still in control of the space, we can split off the enemy team from the other side and have a potential to look for trades. Essentially, you never want your team to take only one angle. Especially because Zen, Bap, Sojourn are weak to getting dove, it would have been better to early farm for a shorter amount of time or even not do it at all, and instead focusing on playing as a filter to protect the poke composition backline. In the next turn, Venosa quickly looks for an assassination and regroups back with the team. The setup here isn't that great either. The supports are completely split off from each other and have no way to keep themselves alive in these positions by healing one another. There's also nothing to stop the enemies from engaging on Zenyatta through the stairs, so it's too dangerous to position out like this. But this time, it's not easy for Genji to block off the stairs, so a Tracer to 1v1 the enemy flanker would be more ideal. The current position for Genji isn't a problem because he needs to be able to escape to cover with wall climb. In order for the current positioning to work with Zen, Bap, and Sojourn playing high ground while Orisa holds the choke, the enemies need to be preoccupied on pressuring the Orisa. Otherwise, we need an ult to stop the enemies from opening up the teamfight for free, which could be Bap, Sojourn, Kiriko, or even an Orisa ult to either cut off the enemy engagement or to pump in damage. But right now, we're in a situation without a contest against Tracer, nor are any ultimates available, which can be an opportunity for the enemy team. Instead, a first corner hold would be a better option. Not only would this utilize Genji's current position, it would also allow Genji to cut off any enemy rotations to the stairs. Not only does Orisa gain extra cover when holding around the corner, it also allows Zen, Bap, and Sojourn to utilize the high ground while staying far away from the enemy team. But unfortunately, Becky and Vindime coordinate again for an assassination. Let's check out Becky's POV. These people are playing ranked like they're in a professional scrim. Although it might feel frustrating on the receiving end and seems impossible to deal with at first, what makes or breaks a game of Overwatch isn't just about aim. Even if the enemy players are more mechanically skilled, you can overcome these differences by playing smarter, regardless of what role you play. This is the next fight after a regroup. The enemies are blocking off the exit by taking a forward hold, and Tracer attempts to land an early pulse bomb. As the team engages, Venosa contests the Tracer on the side, but with wasted cooldowns gets punished by the Becky and Vindame duo. The higher you climb, you start facing pros and some insane players, so there's a hard limit to how far you can go by only relying on mechanical skill. You need to establish what the team will do in the next fight and understand how you will play into that plan. If we look at the current conditions, the payload just got to the bridge and the team needs to break through the choke to reclaim the lost space from the attackers. First of all, the back door isn't that useful because there aren't any useful locations the exit leads to, but if you break through the front door, you have paths to take you into castle or up around to the high ground, giving cover and space. So there's one obvious choice as to where the team should go. The best option for Genji would be to break through the front door and move to the high ground and around to the bridge. It was a little unfortunate that Venosa dashed onto the Tracer without considering the pathing or the wind condition of the team. But fortunately, Hoenn and Irony breaks the hold with an amplification matrix and the enemy Orisa makes a mistake, falling off the edge and giving us the free team fight. Now we can safely use the high ground and poke. Hoenn and Irony successfully cuts off the enemies with a pick on Becky, delaying the enemy push for around 30 seconds. Now we have Genji's Dragon Blade ready. But what we need to realize is that the reason Genji or Tracer gets used alongside a poke composition is in order to manage flanks as well as the payload. When we look at both team comps, we can see that it's much more efficient for Genji to manage the payload, and on the other side, the high mobility heroes Tracer and Kiriko would be best. If we had Nano, Damage Boost, Zarya Bubble, or etc., allowing the Dragon Blade to have a high kill potential, it wouldn't be a bad idea to play the team fight around the Genji's blade. But when we look at the comp for our team as well as the enemies, it won't be easy to get high value from it. So it would be ideal to use Blade to trade out ultimates or designate the team fight to occur around the payload instead to pull the enemies into the defending team space and use the ultimate closer up. But we can see that Venosa is trying to find a chance for a Blade in the front line, which we have no guarantee of securing value. As soon as Becky and Vindame see the Genji's positioning, they move to escort the payload for free. It's virtually impossible for the other squishies to contest the payload, so Genji needs to get Zen's Harmony Orb and hold the point. But the payload just keeps chugging along. Venosa rushes to find value with Dragon Blade, but gets punished instantly. Thus far, he struggled to act as a filter, contest flanks, and manage the payload, so it's unfortunately not looking too hot. But the two Overwatch League supports make use of the ramp, getting cover from the enemy soldier. After mitigating the Orisa ult, they use Amplification Matrix and Transcendence to equalize the fight and bring back the lost momentum. The enemies invest in Nano Overclock for a pick and the supports nullify Orisa's ult. It takes time to charge, so if you play Kiriko, pop Suzu when your team gets closer to the edge rather than immediately. But this is the highest tiers of Overwatch. Our team's Sojourn counter-trades with a pick, and Hoenn continues to survive while saving the Sojourn. We finally gained the upper hand, but Lastro lands a perfect anti, creating a caveat once again. The single Ana grenade has turned the tables, making it difficult for the team to hold an off angle, and Venosa gets punished as a result. Had the biotic grenade not landed, Genji could have pushed into high ground with Harmony Orb, which would have allowed Zen or Sojourn to follow up to utilize more space, but the enemy Ana just did a great job, and Venosa's mental has probably been completely shattered by now. The Orisa gets slaughtered, and then the team gets pushed away from the point, leading to extra staggers. On the last point, Venosa swaps to Tracer in hopes of getting more value. This is supposed to be the first fight of the last point, but the payload has arrived to the final corner already. The Tracer contests the front line against the enemies, but this actually puts the team at a disadvantage of about 80%. On the final point of Eichenwalde, the tank is usually the one to hold the corner because the high grounds are at the end of the map and the point is a highly enclosed area. This means that our Tracer needs to group together with the Zen to contest the hallway on the side. The key to this is to prevent the enemies from rotating around, but Becky and Vindime have already claimed the space. Things are going south very quickly. It's not good enough anymore to rush over from main to flank the rotating Kiriko in order to stop them. Instead, we need to start from the back spawn together with Zenyatta and set up a head-to-head matchup to contest the enemy Tracer and Kiriko. This would have been the ideal situation because a Kiriko-Tracer duo can't easily be stopped by engaging them alone. That way, we don't have to waste recall unnecessarily like this, and you can time the engagement for an equal 2v2 matchup. Overwatch at the end of the day is a team game after all. What happens if the enemies push through the hallway, you ask? The enemy Tracer and Kiriko gain free access to your team's backline. With your team completely surrounded from all sides, the poke heroes get forced to the other wall in order to survive, and all the space you started with will vanish into thin air. From Venosa's point of view, starting at the wrong foot has forced him to use his abilities. When he tries to distract, all he can do is just run away. These problems occur when we don't pay attention to the big picture, so it's critical to set up and plan properly from the start. After respawning, Irony gets a clean pick to stop the snowball from rolling too far. He looks around the hallway again and chases down the enemy Tracer for a cleanup kill, but he makes sure to remain by the entrance to keep the sightlines with his partner's support. Exactly like what you see now, Tracer and Zenyatta need to take over the back hallway together. The enemy Kiriko regroups with the Tracer for support, but they take the fight a little bit too deep, and as more enemies join in, Irony has to pop Trance to escape. Now that we've lost control of the site again, and the team gets pushed to one angle like at the start, the enemies freely back off to recuperate. The enemy Tracer and Kiriko fully rotate from the flank, and Winston dives in from the front, closing out the game. The higher you go, and especially against pro players, you have to increase your understanding of the space game and how to see the big picture. Otherwise, you'll feel completely dominated against, and it's the biggest reason why some games feel so frustrating and one-sided. Oftentimes, it isn't because someone on the enemy team is quote-unquote just better than you. It's more about the game sense and strategy like we've talked about today. And that's exactly why Pro Overwatch exists. We want everyone watching to unlock their potentials and have us as an entire region elevate to the next level. If this helped, drop this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already to see more in-depth analysis videos like this in the future. This was Sapling from Pro Overwatch, and I'll see you guys in the next video.